going to go ahead and get started. This is the Livingston Parish Ordinance Committee meeting. If you would, please silence your cell phone so that it's not going to cause any interruptions. We're going to start off with the invocation. John, if you would please lead us off to prayer.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here safely tonight. Thank you. Please grant us wise counsel to deliberate and to listen to wisdom and have forward thinking for which is best for the constituents, the students, the residents that we represent. In Jesus' name we pray, and may we also get home safe. Father.
Billy? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, and one nation, God, indivisible, with justice. Okay. Caroline, will you please do us roll call?
Mr. Shavers.
Here.
Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Mangus.
Okay, we're going to start off with agenda item number 5. I do want to kind of explain the situation. I want to explain my intent with this ordinance. I want to explain kind of further detail about it and how it kind of came to fruition. Councilman Goff is here. You know, I'd love to have his input on it. So after I got elected, a lot of constituents, Gravity Drainage was coming to me about issues of individuals buying property, whether it be 50 acres, 40 acres, 100 acres, whatever the case may be, and then applying for a minor resub, which we all know is 9 lots or less, and then they build those 9 lots, and then after 2 years, they go and apply for another minor resub on the neighboring tract of land, and then they build those 9 lots, and so on and so forth, and before you know it, you've got a subdivision without improvements, which is 10 lots or less. So while applying for a minor resub, they do not have to pay for any drainage impact study. They don't have to pay for any traffic impact study. They waive majority of the fees that the planning department requires. So this was a loophole that Gravity Drainage came to me and said, you know, we're boots on the ground. We're struggling, dealing with all these minor resubs popping up. Because there's no drainage impact study, we don't know where the water is going, so we're just looking for an answer. I did advise everyone at the last ordinance committee meeting that I would have an ordinance, and it was well understood that Mr. Jerome Fournier would be here to go further into details, but it is my understanding that he spoke to someone at the either administration or the planning department that he could not be here tonight for some reason, but nonetheless, I do have an ordinance drafted. I'm going to request that we push it the way it is to the council and hope that you guys have enough time to read it, understand it, make suggestions, and that it get digested again. But this is to kind of stop that loophole. It's a parent tract ordinance that would allow for families to be able to have their for them to subdivide and not be affected by this, but anything past that would have to. So I'm going to open the floor to the council first, and then we will get it to the public to see if they've got anything.
Hey, can you explain, just in case somebody, maybe Mr. Goff can, what the parent tract means?
Yeah, Councilman Goff, can you help me out with that? The parent tract?
Okay. Ricky Goff, 32774 Kirbywood Drive, Walker. As I understand it, and I'm a little bit gray with it, but as I understand it, parent tract is when it takes a large tract of property and they subdivide it. And then down the road, they subdivide it once or twice. The parent tract is the original piece of property as a whole. They consider that being the parent tract. So that way, when you subdivide the 9, and I think the way it's worded in yours, and I have to look at that, I don't have a copy of it, that when you come back and do it again, that it has to fall under the regular guidelines of a piece of property. So it basically kind of takes it out of where you can just keep chopping it up into pieces. It goes back to the parent tract and the original tract of property when it was subdivided the first time. So it kind of puts them in a category where they need to do that. This is definitely a problem. And one of the things I want to reiterate with the drainage side of it, is they don't even get on the plat a servitude of access to clean the ditch. So not only do they don't really say where the water's gonna go and how it's gonna affect anybody else, but they don't even give servitude of access. So if you can picture 9 lots in a row and a ditch on the back side of them, the developer or whoever it is that's doing these 9 lots could put a ditch back there. But if anybody in there 5 years down the road, those houses done sold once or twice, or they're sold, and they need to get that ditch cleaned out, they call the gravity drainage district, in Ryan's case, or they call DPW if it's in your area. And we have no right to go on that property because it's private property. We have no servitude of access.
Right.
Then we're left holding the bag trying to figure out, getting servitude of access from everybody. And then it just becomes a problem. Becomes a big problem. So there's a rhyme and a reason there on Gravity Drainage District. They having a real problem up there, big time.
Okay. Also, Mr. Shavers, Mr. Goff, you had talked about at this last meeting making it 4 instead of 9.
Yes, I'm almost to the point where we just do away with minor resubs. And then having a road, this and that and other, and you just subdivide the property. I have been looking into a family petition. I know that there's a family petition ordinance that's kind of drawn up, but it's still got a little work to do because in my view it says it's 10 lots, and I think that's too many. So we're right in the middle of needing to try to fix all this problem. And what we're trying to fix is 9 lots, a developer coming in, versus a family that has a substantial amount of people that they want to help, 2 or 3 kids or whatever that they want to give some property to. So if we look at the fact of family petition to where the family member can do what they need to do to subdivide their property, and they go by certain guidelines and they sign affidavits and it's an agreement between the parish and them. It's a legal binding agreement as a family petition. If they void that, then it can just go away. But when you do the 9 lots, it becomes a private road. You have 9 different owners. I think I'm almost to the point where it just go away. And you just do 4 lots.
On a servitude, right?
You just do 4 lots is the maximum you can divide. You can subdivide. But we have to have a mechanism if a family property has 40 acres or 10 acres or 5 acres and they want to go more than the 4 lots. And that's where the family petition comes in. So I'm not saying we're putting the cart before the horse here, but we definitely need to address the problem up there, even if it's a minor, a simple thing of saying that any future minor subdivides have to have some improvements. 1, they got to do a drainage plan, and 2, got to provide drainage servitudes, and 3, they got to have a certain roadbed base. Because right now, they just give you 60 feet, but they just put a little gravel road back down through these neighborhoods. Now, some of them will actually blacktop them. And in my world, some of them may like it, some of them may not, but it is what it is. They put blacktop. So when you as a property owner come in and purchase it, unless you really are specific and pay attention to your paperwork that it's a private road and it's disclosed, and you understand a little bit of what that means, the road can look pretty today, but in 2 years, because the base is not there and it's not built to parish standards, it goes to crap, and then you're left holding the bag as a property owner. So we're trying to protect those property owners that are purchasing on those 9 lots, trying to let the developer do what he needs to do and develop, but at the same time, somebody's got to pay the bill and got to do it right. And at this point, we're not doing it right. We're just going out there subdividing 9 lots, putting a gravel road, selling the lots, and then we'll move on to another piece of tract of property, and that's got to stop.
Yeah.
You got to have some kind of guidelines there.
And
Right now,
the
it's
drainage
just
impact
not
study.
good.
I mean, that's a big thing. We don't know where the water's going.
Right. Did we decide whether it's a there was two levels of the drainage impact, right? The one that was the full-blown for,
Yeah, there was a drainage plan, and then there's a drainage impact study. Both are done by engineers. It's just one's a little less extreme than the other.
right.
And that's why we're trying to, in stating that, we're trying to help that developer or someone that does have nine pieces of property that they want to subdivide and want to build some houses. You're a developer, I don't care how you look at it. You just might not be the bigger one. Well, you need to put forth a good effort, and that is already no drainage you got to do. So we're saying, at a minimum, they need to do a drainage plan and then give us the servitudes for the drainage. That way, the gravity drainage districts and the DPWs of the world knows where the water's going and can have some input to say yes or no on the way what you're going to do with the water. And then we also have the right to be able to go in there and clean those ditches out in 10 years from now or 2 years from now, whenever it might be. Right now, we have it's private property. We can't go on private property.
So when they do when it goes to planning and permitting, no one requires them
No,
to-
because this council has not required it. I'm going to be quite honest with you. You know, you're asking administration to do these things. Well, they are following the guidelines, and you're asking the developer to do these things, and he is following the guidelines, or she is following the guidelines. The problem is the guidelines. They're way too lax for 9 lots. It is a definite impact when you take 9 lots and you develop it and you put house pad, even if they follow the 2-foot freeboard and all that stuff, that water's got to go somewheres, and if nobody has to check and balance it, then you end up with a gravity drainage district that's over here trying to figure out I got this big impact of water now downstream, and they're trying to figure out what it is, and come to find out it's
Minor resubs don't even have to, the planning department can approve those. They don't go to
Right.
any council, any P and Z, nothing. They go straight to the planning department, they approve them, and they move on. So, I mean, I think it's worth making a change to, and,
it has to have a change.
yep.
I'm going to be very clear. From my standpoint, and it doesn't affect my district near as bad as it does these outlined. It has to have an adjustment to it of some sort, whether it just goes away, whether it moves the lots down from 9 down to 4, and then we continue to work on the family petition part, because we want to take care of our constituents that really are trying to do that, right? But when you carving it out and selling lots,
My question would be the wording on the drainage plan, because if that has to be certified, like for sewer, compliance has to go out there, health unit, Brian Myers, they go out and you have to have your electricity on first, and they have to make sure you have a MODAD system and all that. Gary from Gravity Drainage 2 was not really wanting to take on the onus of certifying, the liability, but somebody has to do that. And if that's a private corporation,
it would follow the same guidelines that a neighborhood with improvements would, from the standpoint of when they submit their application. The gravity drainage district would take their plans, like what he's saying, he's not going to go out and shoot the grade and do all that. Someone that's doing those 9 lots are going to have to pay an engineer, somebody, to do a drainage impact plan, not a drainage impact study. You're talking about $20,000 probably difference between the two. Okay, we're not here trying to beat up anybody, but we got to fix this problem. So when you do a drainage plan, they're going to have to hire somebody. They're going to have to design a drainage plan, and then on paper, they're going to have to give the servitudes. That way, when it goes to that gravity drainage district or DPW or whoever it is that has to check off on the drainage part, not only will they check off, but the engineer, our Fort LeBlanc that verifies all these different plans, they would have to look at that and check off on it as well. But most importantly, the gravity drainage districts have a box that they would have to check off on it. They can't go out and design it. They're not that level, but they can make sure what is being presented is good, and they can also have their engineers take a look at it and say it's right.
would this
Right
be
now,
easier
there's
with 4 or 5 lots instead of 9?
anytime like that would be helpful.
All right, if we did 5 lots, would that preclude anybody if they want to do 10? Are they allowed to do 5 and then come back and do another 5?
Well, that's what the family tract is for. It's based off of the first time they subdivide it. They're what it's labeled as, if that's the parent tract there, and then they're not able to do it from the parent tract on. Because that's what the problem is they're subdividing the 9 lots and then building on from this way and across the street and doing a one-way street in. But it's based off of that, from what Ricky said, that original subdivide.
If you're doing more than 4 lots, then you need to have some type of drainage plan, even if you're doing up to 4 lots in my plan, my thought process. My thought is just to move it to 4 and then not have a minor sub with no improvements, because that's what you got. You got a minor sub with no improvements. So you make it to fix it to where you can have a subdivided piece of property up to 4 lots. Kind of the same guidelines, the same thing, but you have to provide a drainage plan for the drainage and allow servitude of access if there's any laterals in there. And once you do that, you do away with the 9 lot part of it. You do away with a lot of the pieces of it. And if they want to develop that with 9 lots, 12 lots, 15 lots, whatever they want, then they can go through that other process. And then we push harder to complete the family petition. And that way, if a family has more than 4, needs to carve their property up in more than 4 lots between this ordinance going into effect, the family petition would be able to take care of that. Again, we're trying to take care of the constituent and make sure we know where the water's going.
Okay. I move that we send this to the council with the recommendation of Councilman Goff of moving it from 9 lots to 4 lots.
I'm good with that.
I send it to the ordinance committee.
Okay. All right.
To the council.
Agenda item 5B, our attorney is en route. I don't know where the miscommunication came from. We were told that he was coming and he would be here, and then all of a sudden he popped up with a church meeting. But we have an attorney on the way to discuss the school impact study. This is something that I implemented. When we consider development, we look at development. We don't ever look at the impacts of the school, and I'm very appreciative to have some of the school board members here, the superintendent. Very thankful to have you guys here to kind of understand and get educated on it as well. This is just a discussion of it. Essentially, what I would like to see is just like a drainage impact study, just like a traffic impact study, it'd be essentially a fee that a developer would have to pay to see, to do basically how it would impact the schools if a development were to be approved. It would be in the planning phases. It would not be something that they pay after the fact. It's going to have to be up front. And what it essentially does is, for instance, Live Oak High, which is a school in my district, I think in 2023 when I was running, we were 180 students away from being at max capacity. So in my opinion, again, you guys are the school board, you have your superintendent, Bob Steele is here with Live Oak High, with the Live Oak School District. When you have an overload of students like that, in my opinion, I think it can affect education when you have crowded classrooms. It can affect behavioral. And essentially it could affect y'all's budget from y'all having to buy T-buildings, y'all having to buy or pay for additional wings to a school. I mean, it affects a lot of things. And so I kind of was looking at this from hey, we look at drainage when we consider development. We look at infrastructure on but how is it affecting the school? And so that was kind of my goal in doing all of this. And I had, me and Mr. Bobby kind of worked on some data that I was wanting to see. And really what I was wanting to see was over a 5-year period from 2020 to 2025, what is the percentage of increase over those 5 years? Okay, if we started out with, I'm just going to throw a number out, 15,000 students in the Live Oak School District. Over that 5-year period, what's the percentage of increase have we increased from that point forward? And so he and I kind of worked on getting that together just so that I could see from a data standpoint, how is it affecting you guys? I don't know if one district affects the other. I don't know if one is more crowded than the other. But from my standpoint, as a parish, we regulate development. We wanted to hear from you guys and let you ask the questions of, hey, what is the school impact study going to do for us? Is it going to affect our enrollment? Is it going to affect X, Y, Z? That's kind of the open discussion I wanted to have. Again, our attorney's on the way to kind of discuss it, but I did want to open up to you guys for questions that I can potentially help with, or maybe somebody from the school can help with on how this would affect surrounding areas.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
I think on its face, this is a really good idea. The problem is that we deal in a world where perception is reality. And if we label it, we, the council, were to label it a school impact fee, then that sounds like it's a tax by the schools. So, and they're not the only ones that are impacted. So we might want to think about, we can have all this discussion, but not call it.
No, it would have to be, the name of it would have to be, would change, obviously, in the form of an ordinance, or in the form of a fee, but it would be essentially in the planning phase, it would be a traffic or drainage impact study, would be the same thing.
Right.
Just as a school impact study. Now, because they are a taxing entity, I don't really know how that would affect, again, that's something the attorneys are going to have to tell us.
So it's my understanding whenever you have a
call
school
me?
impact study or impact studies, that pool of money, whenever you do those impact studies, they have to be very specific on where that money, how it's collected and where that money goes.
Right.
So-
Yes, that's
and so
correct. You
whenever-
can't just be like, you just pay this fee and we benefit because you
Yeah.
did this. It's not like that. It's, I don't want to call it like, when they pay for a drainage impact study, an engineer does it, and it's got to be official, and it's got to be a binding document, and,
Right.
but I don't, again, that's something the attorney's got to help me navigate with.
But yeah, drainage doesn't have a negative connotation to it. Very fortunately, the school system passed the renewal, but people view that as a tax, and we don't want to.
They view what as a tax?
That was the tax, the renewal, right, on the millage. But if we put this as a school impact fee, it looks like the schools are requiring that. It's a tax of the people, and so it may be semantics, but we need to find a way to say that doesn't put an undue burden or affect them.
No.
And I want to hear your take on that as well, gentlemen.
No, this is something that's going to be in the pre-planning phases. It's going to be roped in with their packet. It's going to be, you got to have this. You got to get a school impact study done, just along with your drainage and your infrastructure, and it moves on, and they pay that fee.
That also goes with, it goes with every piece of property that's being developed.
Right.
So it's not, it's across the board, this is the impact study. Do we have a ordinance that's already being written? Is it already written?
No, Steve was supposed to come tonight to speak on it, and just kind of give us a little guidance, answer questions that the school has. And I don't know if we want to pause the meeting so that I could find out where Marty is.
He's on his way, supposedly.
Okay.
He called me.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, if the school board's got anything they want to add to it or concerns, Mr. Bob, if you've got concerns you want to express, in the meantime, while we wait on the attorney to get here.
In terms of
You need to come to the mic, Mr. Bob.
In terms of impact fees, I'm Bob Seals in the Live Oak District Board Member 2, District 2. In terms of impact fees, to me, it's more as a council and as a parish, the consideration of that funding opportunity you have that other folks, Ascension Parish, has fees that they assess for drainage and water and other, some of the components of serving the public when the development comes in. And this is kind of as having all the folks that are quote impacted by development. This is a way of just determining, is that a viable solution and something we should consider. It's early for us to determine whether we want to do that or not. I've looked at Texas and Florida, have examples, formula examples, all the rest that you can look and see, does that fit us? Does that fit what we need? Ascension and St. Tammany have that, not for schools, but for drainage, water, et cetera.
Yes.
And so to me, we're looking at all the entities that are impacted when we have a sizable development come in and I think of the fire district as the first time I ever heard this. And one of the reasons just a practical example is when someone's developing a large subdivision, if something happens on that property and they need a fire rescue or a fire starts and they have to go put it out, there's during the development phase itself, there's cost. There could be cost incurred by some of our taxing districts. And so we're just trying to understand what are those, what are other folks doing, and is it feasible for us? Is it the right thing to do? And it's kind of early, so to me, there's a lot to know about how that's being practiced in other areas, including in our state and beyond. And let's look at that. And it's way premature to me to give it a label or say it's a school.
Yes.
It's really more of a council reviewing this as a funding alternative, which has been mentioned by fire districts and other taxing districts as something we may consider.
Right, because if you think about it, like, take Deer Run, for example, that was an idea of possibly 2,000 homes.
Yeah.
And if you were asked at the school system, how would this impact you? Well, you'd have to do a study. You'd have to figure it out. And I mean, you could just do it off your head and say, well, 2,000 homes, they have 2.3 kids, you're looking at 1 high school, 2 junior highs, 3 elementary schools over the full 15-year build out. But still, somebody's got to front those costs. And
it needs to be an independent analysis, of that. It's
almost an unfunded mandate on you and the school system.
Yeah.
So there should be some recompense.
We had met with Jerome, to just get educated on, what they were doing in planning and zoning, as well as, and how we could work together better in terms of anticipating folks coming in and, how we're going to be ready for them. And he had mentioned, that other folks had done this, and this is kind of the path they took. I would imagine Steve would have the same type of information.
Yeah.
But it's really more of a, kind of a discovery phase. What does this really mean?
And so and with that, and this is what I'm gathering, is that we're looking at all the options throughout the parish, because we have zoning going on. Livingston Parish is one of the fastest growing parishes in the state. So as we grow, as the growth comes, there is growing pains, as we call it, that goes with it. And so they're impacting every area inside Livingston. So as we look into this, we also have to look how this is affecting the people that already live here, and how it's going to affect the people that are starting to move here. So it's a big area.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to make it difficult on you guys, make this a burden on you guys. This is more of I as a councilman am, representing a district. I understand some of the concerns. I think Jody and I had mentioned earlier, we had talked on the phone, and I told him about Patriots Point, which is that development you and I had spoke. That's 96 houses, 76 multifamily housing units, and if you average 2 kids per household, I mean, you're continuing to max out your schools as far as the population, and so that's just one example of many. Of development, how it affects, to me, in my opinion, the school. I may be not thinking correctly in saying that, but overcrowded schools is really, can't be good for y'all, because then y'all have to come up with the funding to add on T buildings, or find the funding to add wings. And, I mean, surely that's not really a burden to have overcrowded schools, but it can be a concern. I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
No, we have to have funding to accommodate growth. So that's certainly,
Yeah.
and there are different ways of funding that.
Yeah.
Right, because you're paid after the fact. I mean, through the
Yeah.
MFP and the October 1 count and
Right.
all that. Also, do we have any other school board members that wanted to speak on this? Or Mr. Purvis?
All right, Jody Purvis, superintendent here in the parish for Livingston Parish Public Schools. So, look, I think Mr. Seals did a great job of explaining kind of the standpoint that I have as well. For us, we are an educational entity, so we are required and we're expected to educate all children to the absolute best of our ability. And we are required to have, to offer that free and appropriate education to make sure we're meeting those FAPE guidelines. For us, we can study, we can provide materials, we can review data, and work as a parish to work through this. But I think this is something that we're going to have to make sure that we're working and doing what's best for the whole.
Right.
Because, it's real easy for us to say, we're going to do this impact fee. Well, that's a one-time impact fee, and we have to think about what it's going to do in the long term, and how does it impact, and I think Mr. Taylor mentioned this, how does it impact our current residents? Because I think there has to be a lot of thought put into that. Is this going to be new developments, or is this going to be those family tracts of land that y'all had mentioned in the previous item? I think all of that has to be in consideration here to make sure we're doing what's best. And to answer your question, is it a burden when our schools are overcrowded? Yes, it is a burden. However, I think there's a fine line between it being a burden and then restricting all growth and becoming stagnant across our parish, where we're not a parish that's competing. So for us, I think we have to make sure that from our standpoint that we're really looking at this from the big picture view. This has came up multiple times. I know in March of 22, there was some meetings that occurred. This is back 2 years ago. With some discussion on this. And then in May of 22, there was actually a resolution that was done through the school board, and that was submitted to the council. And then I think in May of 23, that discussion kind of picked up again. So I know this has been something that's been discussed multiple times. And during that last discussion, if I remember correctly, that was with the before I was serving in this role. But if I remember correctly, part of that discussion was, in order for any of this to really be done, there has to be extensive studies done that will hold up to make sure that it is a study that has enough weight and enough merit to stick. And so from our standpoint, we're here to work as a team. We're here to work collaboratively and to provide data, et cetera, that's needed. But we're also here to educate any kids that walk through our door, because to make our parish strong, that's what we have to do, and we have to just work together on those funding sources.
I really do appreciate that. And I think to answer your question about whether it would affect families that have been here for generations, we can make it to wherever we want. If we want to make it to where 100 houses or more, 100 lots or more, has to pay for a school impact study. If we want to make it 400 houses or more, whatever, we can modify the number to make it whatever is feasible. If it's 50, it's 100, whatever the case may be. But that can all come later on down the line. But I think, which I really wish we would have had our attorney here tonight, but undoubtedly they're not coming. But that was the whole point of them coming, was to explain that and help me understand what that's going to look like, who gets that money, what kind of impact study is it, who pays for it, in the sense of like, from a developer standpoint, and like we had said, if we do, we don't want people who've lived here all their life to subdivide their property, have to pay for a school impact study. We don't want to affect them. But that's kind of the questions I was hoping to kind of just have an open discussion with all of you about tonight, and just kind of get any feedback, and hopefully we can have something more firmer in writing as far as an ordinance, and let you guys look at that, let us look at it, we can all digest it together. And if we feel like, hey, this is just not a good route to go, then we can completely squash it and move along. But I was just thinking from a y'all standpoint of, y'all just, Live Oak High was built, what, 2015? And I mean, y'all are close to capacity there,
Oh, absolutely. I do have a question. So in some of the discussion, it's being stated an impact study, and then in some it's impact fee.
Yeah.
So just for clarity, is the agenda item to have a study to review this whole, or when you say study, are you talking about an actual fee?
So when you have a study impact fee, that is just like you're paying a toll. Let's just say you have to, in order to get from here to here, you have to pay this toll fee, and then you can drive through. That's just that fee. The school impact study is to where you're paying to get this study done. My goal is to pay for I don't want developers or anybody to have to pay a fee because they build 100 houses and they're going to have kids that go to the school. That's not what I want to know from a study standpoint. Have you studied the general population? Have you paid for this impact study? And what were the results of it? That needs to go with your application, along with your drainage impact study, and along with your traffic impact study, depending on how many houses we make it require. But that's kind of where I'm at. That's what I hope that answers your question.
Somewhat. But I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Got a
buddy.
question. So are you stating, and just so I clarify this, is that you want to see what the impact of the development is going to do to the school?
Correct.
So just like there's a traffic impact study, drainage impact study, what is the impact it's going to bring into the school system? So if you, what is it, 2.5 kids per household?
I
Is
think
what the,
2.5, yeah.
two. So if you're doing a 100 home development, so you're looking at, let's call it two kids per household that's going to be going into the school system. How is that going to affect the school system? Because you've got multiple developments going around that whole area. So you've got 100 here, 75 here, 250 here, 90 here. Now you're looking at 1,000 kids. So you're looking at the impact of what that's going to do to the school in that surrounding area. That's what that impact study would be.
Okay.
And who would do that study?
That's a good question. That was for the attorneys to answer to me, so that I could better understand. Is it official? I mean, is it like an official impact study?
And so whenever we discussed this a year and a half ago, and I'm just trying to remember all of what was said, that it is possible to do that. It's for every house that is, everybody has to be treated equally. So if you're going to do an impact study, every piece of property has an impact fee on it.
Well, we could
No.
change the lots to make it.
Whenever we discuss this, like I said, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, they said that everybody has to, that it's got to be fair across the board on that one, and that also
That's a 14th Amendment that you can't say because you're a resident, lifelong resident.
Well, we do it
lives
with
in
drainage.
parish.
We do it with drainage.
I don't know.
10 lots or more, you have to have a drainage impact study. 9 lots or less, you don't. Sure.
Yeah, but just
Ricky
school
Goff,
fee.
32774 Kirbywood Drive, Walker again. So, it's great discussion. I'm glad that the school board is here.
Absolutely.
Mr. Bob landed on a big issue, is there's more than just a school board. There's fire district and everything that's going to want to get on board and try to assess this whole thing. My suggestion is simply going to be is that at the council meeting, that we have our council chairman create a committee. I know everybody hates committees, but this is one that's going to take some time. And it doesn't need to be, it needs to be a Jody Purvis and or his appointee. It needs to be a Randy Delat, his appointee. It needs to be the Fire Chiefs Association or their appointee. It needs to be all these gravity drainage district, their appointees, so everybody can talk about and do it. Because, for example, I'm just going to use this as an example, a traffic impact fee. We cannot, as best that I understand, cannot assess a traffic impact fee without having a good footing of what it's supposed to be for. That's when you don't land where you need in court. So we have to do a parish-wide traffic impact study for the whole parish. So if you go in and you have a development in a given part of the parish, then that development is going to affect that part of the parish. They pay, if it all happens and goes forward, that particular development pays an impact fee. So that traffic impact study looks at the traffic surrounding that particular development, because that's who they're affecting. And the funds off of that goes to help that particular area. It's the same thing I would assume with the school board. Keep in mind, the school board's its own entity. All these other ones we're talking about are parish entities.
Right.
So it's going to be a little bit of learning curve there as well. So if you take a school system and you assess an impact fee in Watson, those funds, as best that I understand it, should not and cannot be used in Marpole. But if Marpole has a development in Marpole, those funds should not be going to Watson either. But on the same part of it is when they come in and they affect our system, whether it's fire department, schools, drainage, whatever it is, then we should have some way of leveling up the system instead of it being on the backs of our taxpayers that are here now. And that's what happens is the ones that are here now, unless they subdivide or do something, they would not affect anything. It's an impact fee.
Right.
It's as your new development comes in, whether it's 9 lots or whether it's 190 lots, then it would be a certain dollar amount per rooftop, if you will, or per lot. But all of that has to come out of the whole overall study and knowing what is needed. So again, whatever that fee is in that particular area, that's where the impact is. That's where that fee is supposed to be used at, as best I can understand. But this is a very big, dynamic tool, but it's one that I think that we do need to, it's like the zoning. This council is in a position in the zoning that we finally are where we need to be and we are moving forward. We still have some work to do, and the impact fees have been talked about a lot. But we're at a point in our parish where we really have to look at what's best for our parish moving forward. And unfortunately, I believe, the developers are going to hate me, but it is what it is, right? Unfortunately, I believe the impact fees are going to be a necessity. How do we get there and not cut somebody's head off, for their development and say, we want you to fund everything? That's not what this is about. I want you to pay your fair share of how you're impacting. And that could be through the fire service as well. It could be through the school. It could be through the gravity drainage part of it, whether it's inside the district or outside the district. But I think if we ask the chairman, along with administration, et cetera, to form a committee that is a very robust part of our parish, key people that can really lock onto this thing and maybe get some more attorneys, the school board attorneys, our attorneys, et cetera, to kind of help us navigate. I think we still got to spend some money on like a traffic study. A traffic study for this parish is about $5 million. But it's a necessity expenditure, I think, because that's the only way we're going to get to a fee, and it's the only way that we're going to get to it in a good direction of taking care of our traffic problems without just spitballing at them. Like we're going to take a rifle and start hitting these problems because we know exactly where they're at. So the $5 million is a necessity in my world, Ricky's world. It's a necessity of an expenditure so we can get the data that we need that can support what we're wanting to do. I'm going to shut up now.
No, I appreciate it.
Mr. Purvis, if I put a committee together, would you be able to have an individual that can go on that? Okay, so got a lot of phone calls to make after this meeting.
Also, I would like to see, we'd have to look into it, check with the home rule charter or our attorney. Maybe it's an ex facto where they don't actually vote, but I've always thought that there should be a member of the central office of the school board on the planning and zoning, because that greatly affects them. And because the difference is the analogy of the gravity drainage or the drainage study, fire falls short when it comes to the school system. The reason being is it's not just the number of children and then you have to build a brick and mortar. By law, the school system has to have a certain number of pupil to student teacher ratio. They're required to provide transportation. That's buses on the roads. I mean, the fire department, the amount of buses, Mr. Purvis, how many buses are there in this parish? Okay, so, if you look at that, they're way different than other entities. And so I think this is a really good idea, Mr. Shavers, to bring this up, and Mr. Taylor to create something. But when it comes to planning and zoning,
I agree with that.
I think we need the school system on that. If we're going to be in this together.
I think state law prevents it. I think it's either, I forget how many members are on there, but I think state law only allows for so many, but I do agree with you.
They don't have to vote, but if they're willing to serve.
Yeah.
Ricky Goff.
Caroline pointed out, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. It should be an advisory board versus a committee. Is that a way, it's non-elected officials, et cetera, an advisory board, and they do all the digging and research side.
Yeah, it would be an advisory board. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead, and if nobody else has anything to add, any more questions, we're going to go ahead and adjourn. But I do appreciate all the input. I appreciate the school board coming and hearing this out. This won't be the end of it. We'll add it back to another ordinance committee meeting, I'm sure, a couple of times. We'll have more documentation from the attorney, and just want to state for the record, I did tell them to be here. They decided not to show up, so, but I do appreciate you guys being here tonight, and if nobody else got anything else, we're going to go ahead and adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Perfect.